core capabilities, that is big data strategy, big data architecture, provides a structure. Framework is nothing but frame, which is having a certain or any program. What it expects is the organized form of data to process it. The organizations will not be successful without the appropriate knowledge and skills to whatever server you are implementing, server framework, server structure. What may be the component you are using? What may be the back-end application and front-end application? Hello students, welcome to the next session of Cloud Computing and Big Data Analytics. I am Dr. Soumyashree from Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram College. Today, in this session, we'll get to know about the framework of the big data. Okay, as we said in the last class, big data is nothing but data that is larger in volume and has greater value. Not only volume, even the value of the data also plays a important role in deciding whether the data that has come to the database or come to the server is a big data or a normal data. So, in this session, I'm going to tell you about what is the framework, why do we need the big data framework, and how they are going to be structured. What is the structure of the framework? Framework is nothing but rough sketch, isn't it? How does the big data can be drawn like that, isn't it? In this session, let's know all these things. All right, let's start with this session. The first thing is, let's know about the big data framework. The term big data framework provides a structure. Framework is nothing but frame, which is having a certain structure. It provides a structure for the organizations or for the enterprises that want to start or initialize their business or combine their business or incorporate the big data in their enterprise or aim to develop their big data capabilities. Already datas are there which are having higher volume and higher value. Along with that, the enterprises or the top management are thinking to extend the capabilities of the big data. Currently, the organization may not be doing analytics or analytical part of the big data. It may be just storing the data and is not doing anything with the stored data. In the next step, what does the organization may do is, it may use the stored or gathered big data for some other purpose, for implementing the analytical concept of the big data. To do all those things, we need to know what is the basic structure of the big data. How does the big data must come into existence? How does the big data structure or framework must look? Or how does my big data application must look? For that, we need to have certain structure. We have the predefined structure which is specified as the big data framework. Okay. The core objective of the big data framework is to provide a structure to what? You are providing structure to what? For enterprise organizations that aim to benefit from the advantages of the big data. They are already using the big data, but they don't know to extract the maximum advantage of the big data. In such a case, what we can do is, we can use the current framework to get the full potential of the stored big data. To achieve the long-term success in big data or in general big data framework, it is the combination of not only people and technology. What is the assumption of the big data is, if you have data and technology and the people, you can achieve the big data. Along with all these things, it is true that we need technology, we need people, but the true thing we need is the structure. If you don't have a proper structure, you will not be able to implement or extract the full potential of the big data. To get the big data's full potential, along with people and technology, you need to have the structure and extract the maximum capability. Sometimes there will be more than what we have expected in the big data. You will be having larger capacity than you think, and you can have so much tasks that can be implemented in the big data which was not there before the framework, or capability can be increased with the help of a proper structure. Okay. The next thing is, the big data framework development was done because of the extra benefits or extra potential that were discovered in the big data. Earlier also there were big data, but they are not categorized as big data. Everything was stored as it is, normal data, and most of us didn't know what to do with that enormous amount of data. We have huge volume of data and it has greater value, but we don't know about the greater value. When do we know the greater value is? When only we use it, isn't it? So for using, we can use the structure of the big data. If you properly arrange the data, what is the benefit of proper arrangement of the data is, you can extract the data more efficiently than the abrupt storage of the data in the database or in the server. Without any proper structure, even if you implement the big data algorithm or analytical algorithm, you will not be able to recognize the proper format of the data, and you don't know you have extracted the maximum amount of data from the server, because the structure of the big data is not proper. It doesn't have a framework, it doesn't have a structure. So what I'll do is, I'll just dump the data into the server, which may not work efficiently with an analytical algorithm. Any algorithm or any program, what it expects is the organized form of data to process it. If you just go and dump into the server, the algorithm will not be able to extract all the possible data from the server. For that purpose, we need a framework. Many organizations struggle to embed a successful data practice in their organization because of non-existence of a structure in the big data. All of the organization will have its own big data. It will store some huge amount of data with a greater value. Huge amount of data you'll get to know when you look at the storage capacity of the data that has been stored. How do we know the value? Whether it is greater, having greater value, variety, versatility it is going to have. How do you know? Is only by proper organization of the data. In turn, this proper organization of data leads the organization to get a better analysis of the data when the analytical algorithms gets executed, isn't it? Apart from that, the structure which is provided by the big data framework provides an approach. To what the approach is provided is, it is going to provide the approach for the organization that want to extract or that want to take into account the maximum capability of the organization for a successful big data practice. What is big data practice? Is maximum utilization of the stored data. That is what the big data expects. By just not storing is not enough for the big data. The main thing you need for the big data is the extraction of maximum capability of the big data. All right. So what is the basis of the framework is, if the organization wants to extract the maximum of the framework or maximum of the big data, you need a proper structure. All right. The main benefit of having the big data framework is, the big data framework provides a structure. As I said even in the previous slides, it provides a proper structure for the organization which want to extract the capabilities of the big data, along with to extract maximum data or analyze the data which can enhance their business capability, their organization's capability. Okay. The another benefit is, the big data framework includes all the organizational aspects like policies, standards, vision, mission, everything will be included in the big data. It includes all the organization's aspect that should be taken care or that should be considered for a successful big data implementation in the organization. So benefit of this is to extract the maximum capability of the big data framework. The next thing is, the big data framework, what it is going to do in the organization is, provides a common reference. It provides a common reference model that can be used across various departments of the organization, which may be spread around the globe without any nation's border or without considering any border. These big data can be distributed over different departments in different branches of a single organization. As we know today, with the help of globalization, the branch of the organization may be distributed around the globe. What does the big data structure provides you is the reference model to extract the data from or process the data from any department of any branch of the organization. It may be residing in anywhere, maybe United States, maybe Russia, maybe Australia, maybe New Zealand, maybe South America, wherever it is. The big data framework allows you to refer to the data that is stored somewhere else in the globe. Okay. Along with that, the big data framework identifies the core and the measurable capabilities. Measurable capabilities in each of its 6 domains. We'll tell what are the 6 domains so that the organization can develop over time by harnessing the data of the organization or the big data that have been stored in the organization. The next thing is, the big data framework is a vendor. It is a service provider, independent. It doesn't depend on any particular vendor. It will be free for all the cloud vendors. This is where the cloud and the big data are going to interoperate. The big data framework is vendor independent. It doesn't depend on any of the vendor to get the service. You can use your big data that is stored in anywhere. So it is a vendor independent application. Okay. It can be applied to any organization. The big data can be utilized by any organization, can be accessed by any organization regardless of choice of technology, whatever operating system you may be using, whatever server you are implementing, server framework, server structure, what may be the component you are using, what may be the back-end application and front-end application may have used in your organization. You can access the big data without the dependency on the technology, specialization or tools. You can access the big data from any platform. It is even platform independent, vendor independent. You can access the big data from anywhere of the organization. Okay. For these things, we need the proper structure of a framework. There is the importance lies of the framework with the big data analyzation. All right. The next is the big data is a people business. That means it depends on the persons who are going to use it. It depends on who is going to use it. Chunk of big data is there. If 5 members are accessing the same big data, 5 members may be utilizing that big data in some other ways, in different ways. It depends on the individual who are going to use that big data. You cannot expect that all the persons who are accessing the big data must access only or must process the data in the same way. Suppose if you have a variable number of data, suppose if you take the Facebook or social media platform where big data can be used, big data platform, somebody who is sitting in front of the monitor can be extracting some of the implementation or some of the applications that the user is using. Like a game developer may be interested in collecting the data or analyzing the data of the profiles. That is, if you take profiles as the included in the big data, the game developer may be analyzing the mood of the person's profile so that he can develop a new game which can attract the customers. Okay. Apart from that, a person who is working for some online shopping site may be analyzing the data based on what are your interests, in what you are interested, whether you are in politics, whether you are interested in sports, whether you are interested in news, whether you are interested in entertainment. According to that, the provider, the shopper will give you the details of the product. Another thing is, some other person sitting may be interested in analyzing the kind of video and photos you view, you upload to the social media, so that he can guess the mood of the person and can provide the suggestions. Okay. Suppose there are videos running in the Facebook profile. How do you get those videos? It the person searches on the interest that you have viewed in the previous search. The big data will keep track of all the search history you have done in the social media. Based on that, the person sitting in front of the big data analyzation may get a conclusion that this person is interested in this kind of video, like sports videos or clips of news or clips of movies or like that. So, big data is same for all the person, but the analyzation may be different with different person. That is why it is called as the people business. Next thing is, even with the advanced computers, if you are using advanced workstations and processors with higher capability, the organizations will not be successful without the appropriate knowledge and skills to utilize those data. All right. The next thing is, the aim of because of all these things, the main aim of the big data framework is to increase the knowledge of information or knowledge of everyone who is interested in big data to make the people more and more interested in the big data they are utilizing, so that they can extract more useful data from the stored big data or information. Okay, the modular approach of the framework and accompanying certification aims to develop knowledge, maybe knowledge or information, whatever you say. Knowledge is, information is the data that I have stored, and knowledge is how do you analyze that data. So knowledge, the modular approach and the framework aims to develop knowledge about the big data in a structured fashion. What does the big data algorithms expect the user of the big data is to properly analyze the data. If you don't have proper analyzation of the data, there is no use of storing the data and executing an analysis algorithm. Even though the algorithm executes the analytical algorithm, the proper understanding of the data that have provided will be based on the skill of the human. So what does the framework expects is, along with organization of the data, it also expects or helps in getting more knowledge on the processing of the data. Alright. The next thing is, it provides a holistic structure towards the big data. The big data, it looks at the various components at the enterprises should consider. It considers all the big data the enterprise must be taken care, and which is useful for the enterprise, and it should consider while setting up a big data organization or big data application. Along with that, every element of the framework, what does it will do, is of equal importance. You cannot ignore that there is a data which is not so much important. Every data in the big data application is considered as with equal importance, and organizations or the enterprise can only develop further if they provide equal attention and effort to all the elements of the big data framework. That means big data framework is structured in a way such that each and every data of the big data application or each and every data in the framework is considered with utmost importance and is used in each and every part of the business improvement. That means you need to consider every data as important. The next thing is, how does the structure of the framework is? How does the framework, big data framework looks like? That is the next thing, the structure of the big data framework. As you know, the big data framework is a structural approach. It has a proper structure that consists of 6 core capabilities. That means the big data framework will have 6 capabilities that organization need to take care into consideration when setting up their big data application or big data organization. Organization nothing but application. Whenever you are trying to implement a big data application, you have to consider the 6 core strategies or the 6 core capabilities of the big data. Okay, here we have the diagrammatic representation of all the 6 big data capabilities. The first is the big data strategy. What does the big data strategy consist of? Let's look into. Next thing is big data architecture. Then we have big data functions, big data algorithms, and big data processes. That means if any enterprise wants to implement a big data application or organization, it has to consider the framework of big data. What does the framework consist is? These 6 core capabilities, that is big data strategy, big data architecture, big data processes, big data functions, big data algorithms, and the artificial intelligence. So it combines all the 5 capabilities to efficiently extract or process the data out of the big data application. All right. The next thing is to know about each of these capabilities in detail. Let's get into that. The first capability that we are going to know is the big data strategy. What are the big data strategies that can be considered? Okay. It consists of 6 capabilities, as we know. The first thing is the big data strategy. Okay, what does the big data strategy talks about? What is the intention of having this capability? Big data strategy is data has become a strategic asset. Whatever you want to do, you need certain kinds of data in a business. You can't do anything with a proper set of data, isn't it? So data has become a strategic asset of most of the organization. Today, not the chairs or the tables or the files are considered as assets. Rather, the data are considered as the assets. The two, for a big data application, it is a strategic asset. What you need to consider to develop a strategy. Okay. The capability to analyze large data sets. How do you analyze the large data sets and discern the pattern in the data? How do you compromise or how do you organize the data can provide organizations with a competitive advantage. So strategically arranging the data will give you a competitive advantage over other organizations which are not using the big data capabilities. Okay. The next thing is, like, for example, if you take the OTT platform, that is Netflix, for example, looks at user behavior. It looks at the user behavior in deciding what movies or series to produce. What they will do is, they will not go on producing the series. First, they'll release certain kinds of or certain categorical short movies to look at the response of the users. How much they are viewing it. What is the viewing experience of the persons or people? How, whether they liked it or not, how much they have rated for that movie, all those things, the response of the members of the OTT platform will be considered in deciding what movies or series they can provide. Who will provide this information is because of the big data strategy. The data is a strategic asset based on the response of the people. The strategy tells that you have to produce the movies only that can run in the platform, or the people will have more views. They'll access to more number of movies and they'll suggest to others to get into the membership of the Netflix, isn't it? So viewership is the main thing in today's entertainment media, isn't it? So it will not run even if it is released in theatre and nobody has come to view it, or only few people have viewed it, then the movie is considered as a flop movie, isn't it? That means the viewership of the people is important to get into next time what I can do. So Netflix or Amazon Prime, whatever the OTT platform we have, they go on analyzing the viewership of the members, okay, to produce or to decide what movies or series it can produce. Like another shopping site, say Alibaba or Amazon or Flipkart, whatever, any shopping site if you take, the sourcing platform. So one example is given of the Alibaba, the largest Chinese online shopping platform, became one of the global giants by identifying which supplier to loan money on their platform and recommend on their platform. Okay, by identifying which suppliers to loan, what products are needed by the customers, which product has most of the demand, and what is the feedback of the people who has purchased that product. Based on that, next time they'll decide from which supplier we have to take the material or we have to give the details in our shopping site. Most of the times the shopping sites just act as intermediary. They'll not be having their own location, their own place to do the trading. Instead, they act as an intermediary between the customer and the supplier. Okay, how does they decide which supplier is best, who is providing the quality product, is based on the feedback of the customer and how frequently that product has been purchased. Okay, based on that, the online shopping platforms will select the suppliers and recommend on their platform. Okay, so because of all these capabilities of the big data has become a big business. That means today's most of the web pages that are interacting with customers, that depend on the purchase of the customers or the money of the customers, has to look at the analysis of the big data. They have to know what are the strategic assets they can keep with them and how to analyze those strategic assets or data. Okay, one thing is big data strategy. Along with that, in order to achieve tangible results from investment, that means results that you can view, we can consider for the profit of the business. So tangible results from the investment in big data, the enterprise organization need a proper big data strategy. That means what does the strategical measures contain is, how can return on investment be realized? You have to spend the money on the investment or you have to invest in the business. How you can expect the return on those investments? How you can achieve that? How you can get the profit by using the big data? And where to focus effort in big data analysis and analytics? What do you want to analyze? If you are a shopping website, you are having a shopping website or a OTT platform, if you are running an OTT platform, what you have to look at is in which kind of videos the user of the social media is interested. You have to analyze it. There is no use if he goes on uploading his own video from TikTok or some other application, because it is not the thing that can make you profit. What does the big data strategy says is that you have to analyze and store, or you have to analyze only that data which is useful for your business, not any useless data. Every data will be there. You must have a strategy, what data I need and how I can analyze the obtained data. Without a proper data and a proper analysis, you cannot get the potential or benefit of using the or developing the big data application. Okay. Along with that, the possibilities to analyze are literally endless. You can't expect that only this much I can analyze, I can get it this result and is over. Before some 5-6 years or 10 years, nobody knows that if you are using, then also you are having the social media platforms, isn't it? You had social media platforms, you are using it, but the organization didn't know that by your behavior or by your response in the social media, one can analyze the behavior of the person, or one can analyze the mood of the person. One can analyze what he likes to purchase, what he wants to look at. So all those things were previously there also, but there was no strategy to get the benefit from those things. Okay. Even today, the organization, while recruiting, they are getting into the profile of the persons they have recruited. If a person has been recruited, sometimes the top level management or the HR persons will look into the social media platforms of the recruited person and decides what is his personality. They analyze the personality of the person based on who are his friends, what are his political views, what are his general views about life, or what he thinks about his work environment, what he thinks about his colleagues, his boss. All those things can be observed by just looking at the profile and the status they have put in their social media account. All these things are endless. This is just a few examples. The other things or capabilities of analysis of big data are literally endless, and organization can easily get lost in the zettabytes of data. That is what the points have said. If you don't have a proper strategy, what you have to look into and how you have to analyze that, you may be escaped or you may be wandered in the forest of the data. It has zettabytes of data. In the thick forest of data, you may get lost and don't know where you are heading and what you are expecting. Okay. Along with that, a sound and a structured strategy. A proper strategy is the first step to get a success in big data analysis. If you have a proper strategy, what I should do. If I have a big data on my table or in my system, what I must do with them, how I have to organize it, how I have to analyze it, and how I have to take a conclusion. All these things is possible only when you have a proper strategy in the big data application. The next thing is the big data architecture. We have the architecture of the big data. What does this capability suggest? What are the necessity of these big data capabilities is, in order to work with a huge volume of data sets, the organization should have capabilities to store and process the large quantities. It must be able to process and manage the large quantity of the data. Along with that, to achieve this, how do you achieve the capability? How do you process the data that is available in the bigger volume? The enterprise should have the IT infrastructure, basic infrastructure to facilitate the big data. It must have proper hardware and software infrastructure to store and analyze the big data if you want to extract the full capability of big data. Along with that, enterprise should have a comprehensive big data architecture. It needs to have its own architecture of storing and analyzing the data. You have to have a proper architecture to facilitate the analysis of the big data. And the architecture must answer the questions like how should enterprises design and set up their architecture? How does the architecture must be to facilitate the capability of the big data? Along with that, it has to answer the question like what are the requirements? Architecture must answer the question like what are the requirements from a storage and processing perspective. That is, how do you process, how do you store, and how do you process the big data? This depends on the architecture. Along with that, the big data architecture of the framework considers the technical capabilities of big data environment. How capable the big data environment to tackle the latest technologies, latest skills. Okay, the big data capability or application must be able to cope up with the advanced technical capabilities in the organization. Along with that, it discusses the various roles that are present within a big data architecture. What are the roles that can be provided in a big data application, and looks at the best practices for design, which is the best design that can be designed or that can be provided to get the more of from the big data application. Okay, along with vendor independent structure of the framework. It does not depend on the vendor who is going to provide these data. This section will consider the big data reference architecture of the NIST. So NIST or National Institute of Standards and Technology has provided the architecture for the big data storage and analysis. Okay, this is about two of the capabilities of the big data framework. In the next session, we'll continue with some more capabilities of the big data. All right. Thank you.